Now we come to the much awaited discussion on what the latest announcements from SEBI mean for the growth of the mutual fund business. In the last few weeks, SEBI has announced a slew of guidelines aimed at helping the mutual funds grow the business. Keeping the theme of the event, which is Let's Talk Growth, I would be urging the panelists to think of the growth prospects that all these measures foretell. We have an eminent panel of active CEOs, Mr. Rajiv Anand, MD and CEO of Axis Mutual Fund, Mr. A. Balasubramanian, CEO Birla Mutual Fund, Mr. Harshendu Bindal, President Franklin Templeton, and will be joined by the foremost mutual fund commentator, Mr. Dhirendra Kumar of Value Research. May I request you gentlemen to come and take your seats. Joining us this evening for what interesting discussion. Actually, I'm sure all of you have been reading and rereading the various announcements that we have seen over the last month or so. So we won't get into the details of that. And I think I would start this by, asking Rajiv. Do you think, Rajiv, that these measures that have been announced are, substantial enough? I mean, given the expectations and the aspirations of the industry, I mean, are they really something that's going to make a, big difference? And could there have been more? And besides these measures, I mean, what are the kind of macro drivers that you see which, will allow this business to grow over the next, 12 months, 24 months, and later in the future?
Thanks. The way we see it, I think the previous speaker spoke about public good. I think a couple of things are happening in India. One is the fact that markets are being driven by the foreign investor rather than the local investors. And we've seen for various reasons the local domestic institutional institutions aren't getting flows, which is both basically insurance and mutual funds. That is clearly has been a concern for the government. Two is what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years is that the Indian investor has bought literally tons of gold, and gold from a macroeconomic perspective does nothing for this economy. And I think the government is also trying to move money away from gold into financial assets. So I think basically to get the domestic institutions going, to rebalance relative to the FIIs and to move money away from gold were two the big macroeconomic reasons why the government is spending so much time in trying to rejuvenate the mutual fund industry in particular, but the mutual fund industry and the insurance sector in general. We've, from a business perspective, which is really the second level, the big picture is, I mean, as we all know, we are a nation with 35% savings rates, growing at 6%, 7% on an average. So in that sense, there is literally billions of dollars looking for a home, a profitable home, which can beat inflation in the long term. So I don't think there is any reason for either us as manufacturers or the distribution community to be too pessimistic about the future. The third aspect really is, if you look at what's happened in financial services across the world, the regulators have been moving profit pools away from the manufacturer, away from banks to the end consumer. You've seen that in the US, for example, the amount of charges that you can charge on a credit card were curbed. In India, we've seen the deregulation of savings rates, which has actually moved huge amounts of money away from banks into the hands of the consumer. This is the first time that I am seeing, at least since 2008, that money has moved from the hands of the consumer back into the manufacturer's hand. And it is really up to us as manufacturers and in conjunction with the distribution community of how we are going to use this pool of money such that we are able to build a long-term profitable business as we go forward.
Thank you, Rajiv. I think the point really is that there's, I think, a certain mechanism being built, or being facilitated by SEBI to grow the business. And so, Harshendu, if I may ask you, I mean, this transfer of money to the manufacturer, I mean, how do you see that translating into a growth of business? Because it's all related to the various, lines of announcements that we've seen. And all of it are not necessarily revenue enhancers in that sense, because some of them are more, operational or, how do you see, this transfer helping?
Thanks. I think, what amazes me about this environment is outside of the micro issues. And so, for example, the regulations has various clauses and different areas that it's addressing. And I think there's too much of a discussion on each of the clauses and the micro aspects. I think we need to take a step back and look at what's happening with all of these changes. Not only these particular last set of changes, but overall in the environment. And I'm actually finding that the dispensation for mutual funds in the country, Rajiv talked about some of that, the government recognition that this industry needs to be encouraged, and the role that the industry has to kind of grow capital markets in the country. But really some of the structural changes that are happening are quite amazing. And a lot of the issues which have been discussed for the past few years, I think some of the structural solutions to those issues have been coming out. And so let me kind of just give a few examples. So, for several years we've been having these forums, and we always get told by SEBI or, various people that this industry doesn't focus on anything beyond the big cities. And that you need to go out and you need to penetrate and you need to, reach out to several cities. And so it was told to the industry, you're being a bad boy, you aren't really going out and penetrating. Why don't you do that? So to me, if I take a step back as a manufacturer and say, hang on, why am I not being able to sell in all of the smaller towns and cities that is expected of me? And why wouldn't I want to do more business than I can? Then I have to look at the reasons why this has not happened. And so, for example, if I look at the penetration issue, I think of 2 or 3 structural things which were coming in the way of that penetration taking place. So one structural issue is, and which is an issue that faces all of the capital markets in a country which has a stock exchange history of over 100 years, is that there is a lack of awareness. And that's, to my mind, the number one issue facing the industry. So lack of awareness is an issue. The second issue, to my mind, structural, was that I don't think enough consumers actually qualified to be a part of the industry. And by that I mean, you had a limitation. If you want to come into the industry, you need a PAN card. And there are only about 12, 13 crore PAN cards outstanding in this country. So that's your overall consumer base. Or another structural issue is that there's a huge lack of distribution that this industry has. So when we did the KYD, we found out that there are about 43,000 distributors. And frankly, the industry knows there are only about maybe 10,000 odd who are actively selling. Now, is that good enough in a country India's size? And clearly, if you just look at the example of insurance and the number of distribution bodies on that side, I mean, the structural issue facing the industry is that there is lack of distributors. So there are 3 structural issues I've talked about: lack of awareness, lack of distribution, and lack of consumers eligible to be in the industry. And actually, if you see the latest set of regulations, tackle all 3 of them. So the lack of awareness, I think there is 2 aspects to it. One, which is in the regulation, which is the 2 BIPs, which is that the industry has been asked to spend a good 140 crores to 150 crores a year in trying to spend investor awareness. Now, you may agree with the solution, you may not, but the fact is somebody's applied themselves to it and said, let's create a pool of money and let's make sure that investor awareness as an issue is tackled. I don't know how many people in the room have read the paper on the national financial literacy, and I think that's an amazing piece of paper that actually envisages how to overcome this issue of financial literacy. And effectively, it talks about that it's going to be included in the school curriculums and that they're going to work with the Ministry of HRD to make sure that any Indian who's had an education is financially literate. So that's the awareness aspect of it. The distribution aspect of it, there's several things in the current set. The different new cadre of distributors, trying to expand the distribution base, trying to reduce ARN fees, trying to simplify the exams so that more and more number of people, in fact, that's the big message out of these regulations, which seems to have been diluted, that actually, and then you see what has happened with the PFRDA. They're also saying that there's be more money on the table for distribution of the products to take place. So actually, the environment is changing to the government recognizing that distribution in financial products, especially at the retail level, plays a big role. And so something needs to be done about it. And so the distribution aspect is kind of being fixed. And then the KYC part of it, where they've done away with the need to have a PAN card for up to 50,000 rupees per person per year per mutual fund. To me, this frankly opens up mutual funds to the whole of India. So you're moving from 10, 12 crore potential consumers to now about 50, 60 crore consumers, everybody effectively who has a bank account. So there are several changes being done. So now just look at this one issue of penetrating, and I think the penetration will happen. And then obviously the money for the distribution, which is the 30 basis, which has been provided to penetrate beyond 15 cities. So again, that's a lot of money put on the table for this penetration to happen. Again, you may agree with it, is that the right method, wrong method? But really, just look at this issue and the structural issues around it, and each of them is tackled, and now I think penetration will therefore take place. And so this is just one example. I think there's structural changes happening in the area of distributor regulation. There are some tax benefits that are coming to the industry. Pension insurance, I think there's been a movement on that side. With IDA saying bundling of products they will look at, or the SEBI chairman kind of encouraging everybody to step up in the pension space. So I think actually from an overall structural perspective, a lot is being done, and it definitely will have a positive impact as we go forward. I also recognize there are a couple of irritants that are there, and that's kind of taking away from the conversation. But I think there is enough in these set of changes because they are addressing the structural issues for things to kind of move on a growth path eventually.
Yeah. Harshendu, talking about, I think we do understand that a lot of, whether it's the 30 basis or the service tax or the 20 basis, and wherever there's a revenue enhancement, I think there is some amount of translation or transfer onto the cost of raising the funds in terms of distribution or such. But when you talk about some of the sort of things that have been left, let's say a number of constituents unhappy, are things like, let's say, direct. Was there a need for it? Now could it have waited? Was there anything really that was coming out of it? So maybe I'll ask Dhirendra, I mean, since you've been also part of the advisory committees and all that. I mean, how do you see this, what do you see direct as impacting, let's say, our distribution community? Do you see investors taking a big interest in that, and how over time you expect this to pan out, and what your background from an advisory committee perspective?
No, one is that I'm quite alarmed by this direct thing that has happened, because it's a real threat. And I'm more alarmed by the way it happened, because it is completely an unintended consequence. It was not a planned for thing. The way the discussion was happening is that SEBI had a point of view. SEBI posed a question that they had provided for the QFIs as eligible investors. And they were asking question to fund companies that why are they not coming? Why it has not taken off? And fund companies said that you don't allow us to have another plan, another cheaper plan, because globally the larger investors are used to investing in a plan which is not 2.5%, 2.25% or whatever. It's much lower. So they said that, okay, we'll let you know, we'll let you do that. And to let you do that is the direct plan. So all of you, all the heartburn which you see is completely an unintended consequence. Because I see a big disconnect between what SEBI is doing on one side and what it has done on the other side. On one hand, they are doing something that go beyond top 15 cities, give more money. I think what SEBI has done, which is a bigger turnaround, which is something which you should take, which is something to be pleased about, is there's a complete change in the mood. There's a complete change in the sentiment. Till about 3 years back or 2 years back, the whole business was being looked with a great deal of suspicion and was being intensely regulated. And there was a need to be regulated rather than being a consultative, meaningful dialogue which translates into the developmental agenda being part of the table. And there was a reason for that. There was a context to that. There were excesses or a market decline, and there were a lot of things and that was the fallout. This I think, the two things being done by SEBI are completely disconnected. They are, and it has the potential. And why I feel that it is a real threat, because to evolve a practice which ensures that you evolve a customer, introduce him, hold his hand, and if you do your job well, if you do your job objectively and with great integrity, which means you will empower your customer, and that is a great thing. And that is the only way you will have a customer for a lifetime. And the moment you do it, this particular thing, this particular regime will ensure that he is unlikely to be your customer for a lifetime, because he will be more informed, aware. More so, the Indian consumers focus on value centricity. I have this great fear that Indian investors or Indian consumers in general might spend 50 rupee to save 10 rupee. And that is a real threat. That it may not be meaningful because they will lose their objectivity. So, and I don't think there's an easy way around it. If it comes about, then it becomes very difficult to get rid of it. I really don't have a solution. But this unintended consequence which has come in your way, I think you would have been better equipped to deal with it if you were better organized. You don't have a voice.
Bala, I want to ask you a question. Maybe just move away a little from this specific topic or the subject. But I'm saying it's a more philosophical question. Where has SEBI's turnaround really come from? Because suddenly in the last set of announcements, there's a sense you're getting that SEBI is taking the industry or the players of the industry as responsible players of the industry, in the sense whether it is 12 basis, forget the service tax, it's saying that there's fungibility, so we trust you to manage it well, or giving you more money to go out and do that and give it as an incentive. I mean, typically over the last some years we've seen most SEBI measures more as a mandate that you have to do 20% business outside the top 15. This time it is an incentive to do business, and the AMCs can choose to do it or not to do it. So, I mean, while it's very heartening, I think it'd be also interesting to know, where that change of heart is really coming from.
Clearly, I think somebody mentioned about, I'm very pleased. And frankly, the way the SEBI has looked at the industry, and also the industry practices. At the end of the day, whatever is coming in today is an outcome of the industry practices. What we have established over a period of maybe 2 decades or 3 decades. And the new regulation which has come, to a large extent, otherwise I have never seen ever in the history, the scores of announcement is coming in one circular, which is right from 20 basis point to 30 basis point service tax issues, which is nothing but, in some sense, you can call it as a hindrance, which otherwise would have actually stopped the industry to grow. And second is, what is the need actually for the industry to grow? That means you need to give a recognition for the industry for them actually to grow the business. Third, you need to also look at it from the point of view of the manufacturer remains successful in the business model, so that he is able to actually put his muscle power to go and expand the market. And fourth, of course, when I am giving more money, at the same time I need to also tell the people that the money is being given to you actually for you to go and spend in the market, not for pocketing it. So it comes actually so much in so many words. Itself actually shows the commitment which is coming from the regulation, which is coming from the regulator. Which is come from the top, is again coming from somebody who has seen the industries for many years. That's one. Second is, of course, one from the SEBI's angle. And second is getting a recognition in the Ministry of Finance itself. And the very fact that the budgetary documents, especially for the Rajiv Gandhi equity schemes, nowhere there was a mention about the equity schemes of the mutual funds. Nowhere it was mentioned. It was supposed to be only for direct equity. When there was a representation that was made by the industry players from AMFI, there was a clear recognition that was being brought in on the way the Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme now is being made available for the mutual fund units also. Which also, in my view, it's actually an acknowledgement for the mutual fund industry, and an acknowledgement for the importance of the industry which can play in developing the capital market. That's the way I'm seeing it coming from the Ministry of Finance itself. And the last, of course, is not the least, is when we met some of the industry players, met up with the Ministry of Finance. So some of us, of course, were fortunate to be part of that meeting. that itself shows a commitment which is coming from the government that the mutual fund industries can play a very big role, given the fact that the large pool of money that is available in the country, which need to get tapped, which essentially means there is a need for a change. As Dhirendra Kumar mentioned, there is a need for change. It's not for the mutual fund industries players like us, we need to also change at the end of the day. Even the distribution community also need to change, given the fact that the more pool of money that's available, for which I need to also help the industry to remove all the constraints. And you talked about the fungibility. Is actually is an outcome of the constraints what is generally is there, especially for manufacturers, which is the account in which you need to book it. But today there is no concern at all. It's actually it's in an open manner that is being given. So that's why I think I see actually the way the regulation is changing for the last, especially the 1 year, more empowerment that is coming in the hands of the asset management company, hold them responsible. And other interesting point which I observed, which of course none of you may not be so much concerned with that, which is on the fair valuation. A regulation which is built over a period of last many years with prospective guidelines where I go and tell actually how you want to do the valuations. Today the entire guidelines has been removed and changed with a single line which is just a fair valuations, which essentially means increasing the responsibility on the manufacturers so that they know how to do the business. They have responsible trustees sitting on the board, and they also have people who are actually responsible running the business. They need to own the responsibility in the best interest of the investors. And that's the way I think in my view the regulation is changing. And probably we'll see more such things coming in as we move forward if you also actually as a collectively show a commitment to actually grow the business. At the end of the day, the manufacturers hold the responsibility in the expansions. So many times also one should also accept the fact that we don't actually go and open a branch in the deeper pockets of the country for the reason that those branches are not profitable. But the profitability always comes only over a period of time, which essentially means they would test actually what is the kind of commitment we as a manufacturer, God, go and expand the market in terms of opening of branches. There is no doubt it may remain non-profitable for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But if there is a potential for the market to grow, there is nothing wrong in making a long-term investment in those kind of market if I am serious about building the business. But this is where I think I see the regulation is coming. And the way I think so much of micromanagement has been done in the regulations is more intended towards making it much more clearer so that we don't spend our time in terms of interpreting the regulations. It's crystal clear, so that I need to just go and implement it and see to it that I'm back in the business and growing the business. And that's the way it is coming. Today, for example, none of the manufacturing, none of the AMCs debating about how to interpret the regulation. It's very crystal clear, black and white, and I need to just go and see actually how to implement it. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
This change, that SEBI is showing, and I think showing a lot more interest in the mutual fund business, in developing the mutual fund business and wanting to treat the players more responsibly or as responsible players. How do we over the next, let's say 12 months, see the AMCs responding to these, this shift? Because there is a certain pool that has shifted, like Rajiv said. There is a newfound interest and confidence as far as the Ministry of Finance is concerned, and I think there's penetration and increased inclusion that we're talking about. So, whoever, maybe Rajiv. Yeah.
I think clearly the people who have been serious about building this business, especially in the AMCs, I think the pressure will come in terms of where do I go and expand the market, which essentially means that those who do not have the branches, they may of course go back and revisit where all I should open a branch and have my own people so that I can build a distribution model there. And second clearly is very fact that they are keeping aside 2 basis points towards the investor education. So it essentially means the money is available for me to go and spend money in the market for creating investor awareness. It's not for spending an advertisement about my product and then see to it only my products are sold. It's nothing specific to this product, it is something specific to the concept of the investing in mutual funds. So that I think their regulation is very clear, which essentially means for us manufacturers that money is available for me to spend in real sense in creating awareness in the market, which is what I see actually the next few. I think we all debated in the industry, the 2 basis points and 7 lakh crore or 140 crores, is it small or big? At the end of the larger the pie is better for us. So I mean I'm able to sustain it in terms of creating investor education. The moment we start spending that money on investor education, clearly from the distribution community point of view is make the job relatively easy when it go and actually tap the consumers. So this I see actually is happening big time. And third, where I see it happening big time is on the watered down version of the product, is labeling of product, and also watered down version of NISM exams is going to actually make a lot of people may even think about coming back to the mutual funds in terms of selling this as a product as part of their part-time profession. So which essentially means the more community also could grow. This is where I see it happening in the next, may not be in the next 1 year, but definitely I think the roadmap could be there for next 2 to 3 years in those direction.
I can ask you this question, which is now, there are these terms now, what is it, T15 and B15. T15 is top 15, B15 is beyond the 15. So I think a lot of the 30 basis is clearly to be spent developing the B15 markets. Now, but there is an additional revenue pool that has come in. How do you see that impacting a lot of our distributor friends sitting here who are clearly from the T15? So do you see any impact?
I think I'm sure many of you have already received, many fund houses have made some changes to their brokerage structures, etc. So I think in a sense you've already seen what that answer is. The way the regulations read, I think is fairly clear. As far as the 30 basis points is concerned, it is not a profit to the asset management company. It has to be demonstrated that that amount has been spent raising money outside, in the B15 locations. So in that sense, what every asset manager is looking to do is rejig their commission structures in the B15 such that you're able to generate this money, qualify for the amount. There is a qualification, I'm sure each one of you have read the qualification criteria. 30% of new inflows needs to come from outside the top 15 cities, and that amount and the overall amount has to be at least 15% of your existing AUM. So the focus in that sense is the utilization of the 30 basis points in the B15 locations. As far as the T15 is concerned, it's really market forces that will drive. Some fund houses will go with their existing structures. Some fund houses will increase. Some fund houses could even decrease. Given the fact that we no longer have the luxury or the protection of exit loads, I think one of the things that you certainly see, whether it is T15 or B15, is that we're going to go into a clawback mechanism. So wherever upfronts are being paid, they will come with a clawback, which means that really the business model for the distribution community has now changed, because earlier what used to happen is that we used to pay a upfront to the distributor and in a sense penalize the customer. Now the onus of your income is really in your hands to ensure persistency, the longevity of this money, and the longer the money remains, the higher is the income. And in a sense, hopefully over a period of time, we are aligning the interests of the investor, the distributor, and the manufacturer, such that hopefully all three of us benefit.
Maybe I'll just shift to Dhirendra and a little from a consumer perspective. I mean, AMCs and distributors debate regulatory changes and all these announcements threadbare, and it's a lot of time spent on it trying to understand it, etc. I mean, how do consumers or investors react to this? I mean, since you spend so much time on that space, I mean, do they really read this, or how does it spread up? I mean, how would they know about direct? I mean,
no, investors won't know about direct. In fact, the first time investors, they need to be introduced. Don't be under any kind of impression that mutual funds will be bought. Mutual funds are to be sold, howsoever hard anybody tries. SEBI is doing something else about which I'm actually, I'm just thinking of the unintended consequence on one front. Because at one stage, while they're trying to loosen the distribution force, unleashing this force, they are trying to classify funds that these are simple products and they can be sold by anybody. Which by design, if I actually have to do the reverse of it, which means that there will be a government guarantee, SEBI is certified, simple and performing product, which means there will be a certain set of non-performing and complex product. Which to my understanding is going to create, and performing and non-performing is a very dangerous thing, because in my 20 years of tracking mutual fund performance, what doesn't perform starts performing. What was performing stops performing. And it happens all the time, and I make a living out of it. So I don't know how one can actually certify the performance and sustainability of it for anything which is market linked. So to my understanding, this will actually complicate things. It will put investors on the short end. The other is that in mutual funds has to be sold, and if you are unable, and I think the value add of advisory is bound to be much more than the differential which one will save by doing it all himself from the stage of getting initiated and graduating and moving on. But the point is that it will, I have my worries about the noise which will surround the direct, the awareness which will be created, and you and all those people who will be running their practice with diligence. They'll be transparent with their customer in terms of telling that what other options are and things like that. But I think NPS is a live example that if there isn't enough on the table, it doesn't get started.
Harshinder, how do you, relate to Dhirendra's point about, this simple performing, complex non-performing, and also the fact that, you're talking about a new cadre of distributors who are supposed to sell part A, which is the simple. I mean, how does that change the dynamics or the distribution dynamics?
Bala made a very interesting point about the valuation, and I'll point to that. I think we are better served, we are going to be better served if we move to more of a principles-based regulation regime as opposed to a rules-based regulation regime. So, and I'll tell you the difference between the two. In a rules-based, they'll tell you do 1, 2, 3, and people then interpret. And so you make sure, Mr. AMC and the board and the trustees, that you get this right. And so when I come and do your audit, you have to make, be able to tell me how you've achieved that. And so that immediately places the onus, and I can tell you as a manufacturer, then you're double careful and say, I have to get this right. Because it's not a process 1, 2, 3, which I can do and sort it. I have to apply myself and make sure that I'm treating the consumers fairly. And so even in this case, I think while Dhirendra is right actually, they should have just left the principle. They should have highlighted the principle, said, we want to introduce a new cadre of distributors, make sure they are equipped right, they pass the right kind of exam, and they are saying the right things to the consumer, and they are selling the right kind of products. And if you do that, that's it. That's the job done. Instead of saying, okay, define a simple product, define a complex product. And now obviously this is the regulation, and so we'll figure out a way, but I just hope that they move more and more to the principle-based side of things, and I think that will help the industry grow a lot better. And in fact, globally, regulation has moved to principles-based. And we seem to kind of, in certain areas, be principle-based, and certain areas we are kind of micro-ruling everything. And I think that sometimes places a challenge.
But do you see this this new cadre of distributors really, increasing penetration or increasing the number?
For sure. I'm absolutely convinced that will happen. Because what is it? I talk to my friends, forget in the B15, I know in Bombay I talk to them, and they are not from the financial services industry, and I talk to them about mutual funds. I'm not convinced we are done penetrating in Bombay in any way. Most people don't care. They don't get up in the morning and say, I want to know about a mutual fund. So I think, see, I'll give a simple example. Even if they kind of are able to talk about and say, look, there are these set of mutual fund products. By the way, they have equity, fixed income, gold, other things. And so you're buying gold, can you think about buying through a mutual fund? Or you're buying equity, can you buy through a mutual fund? You'll get an active manager. It's a transparent product. You know the exact cost. By the way, these products are for the long term. They're able to set the expectations right while coming in. Even if they are able to do that, they don't need to, if they're selling an equity fund, say, to my mind, they can say, look, this is the product, these are the benefits, why you should look at equity so that you can beat inflation. And if you don't beat inflation, you're dead in the long run in any case. And by the way, this is uneven. It doesn't come in like regular dividends and yields. And this is the nature of the product, and you have a professional guy who will look at it for you, and I'll help you figure out the right fund. And that's about it. And so that's the kind of thing we need to kind of focus on, as opposed to worry that if just that awareness spreads, I'm sure there will be end up with a lot more consumers.
The new, let's say the simpler distributors as it were. I mean, how do you see them relating to, our existing distribution? I mean, are they a threat? Are they complementary? Would the existing distributors benefit from, the work that they do?
I think given the shortage of distributors in the country, I mean, that question, I mean, to me is a non-question, frankly. You cannot say that in India, a country like India's size, we need 10,000 active distribution entities. That's just not enough. And you need to supplement this big time. The lack of awareness for this industry is staggering to my mind. So I think all of that will add up to the number of people talking and selling. In fact, I think it will be complementary. See, once you have people talking about it and interesting in it, then the rest of the things can resolve. But right now, I find that there is not enough awareness about this industry, and so we don't have enough consumers, frankly.
One of the things that we had discussed, before we came on stage was to spend less time talking on stage and allow more time for questions, which unfortunately we were. No. So no. So what I thought is, if each one of you can just, say whatever is coming to your mind, around these regulations and growth, and then we'll leave the floor open, because some specific questions can also address some of the issues that are there. That's fine. Yeah. So Dhirendra.
Talking about this education, I think, the education in this context has to be a real one. And one of the most promising thing that is being talked about, and there is a off-bit chance or a reasonable likelihood of getting a good shot at forcing Indian investors to mandatorily experience mutual fund, is one of the biggest hopes, is one of the most promising thing that I see. Assuming that, this NPS was implemented beautifully, which means in 2004, April 1st, at least by now about 1 crore investors would have experienced the SIP in a market link thing. Because, mutual fund is one aspect. The real challenge for Indian investors or Indian consumer is to reconcile with any market linked investment and the way they experience it and the way they view it opportunistically. They think that it is there for something and you need to be really tricky about it. You must know the magic, and not knowing the process of it. And if you are forced to or cornered to a situation that you have to experience it, you will learn it. And the best education will be the real thing. If from April 1, 2004 till 2010, if 1 crore investors would have experienced SIP in the NPS, which was mandatory, I don't think there could have been any better education or any amount of investment in educating investors can replicate that real experience of gaining market experience methodically.
Pala, you want to add anything to what we've discussed before we go to the...
Yeah, I think my only the estimate is whatever could be done from the regulation point of view after almost 3 years of waiting how to revive the industry. I think a large extent has happened actually. I don't think we can expect anything more than what has already come, which essentially means that there is a high onus and responsibilities which now is coming on the AMCs and of course the market players in terms of focusing on our business growth. I think given the fact that the wealth effect is pretty large, I think the current regulations would only help the industry to grow. But the way I am seeing it, probably there will be more effort to expand the market, there will be more effort to increase the investor base. Is the need of the others. I think he talked about, we talked about the number of distributors who are actually empaneled. Maybe it could be number could be 40 or 50,000. But I always see the number actually every month how many people are getting the brokerage. They don't actually run beyond 7,000 or 8,000 numbers. If I also remember when SBI chairman when he talked about a few years back, OP Bhatt. So one of the things you mentioned is There is one area where there will be a shortage of people. There will be a capacity constraints in this country is on actually the financial advisors. I also truly believe that there will be a shortage of financial advisors. I think we are moving in actually that kind of directions. It's clearly actually the roadmap which you have to take is actually the growth is the only mantra in which I think all of us have to work. And then unless I put in my own business high level of optimism, then who else will put actually optimism in my own business?
Great.
I think
Yeah, Rajiv.
if you heard the conversations through the morning, there were two things. I think as a manufacturer, the onus really is on delivering performance. Now, there could be multiple definitions of performance, but basically, I think what it means for us is that we meet whatever the investment objectives of our products are over a sustainable long-term basis. But I think what Santosh Desai mentioned is also equally important. And I think we are not able to answer the question of what does a mutual fund do for me in my life, relative to buying a house, relative to buying fixed deposits, relative to buying post office, relative to buying insurance. What does a mutual fund do for me in my life? And that's really where investor awareness, financial literacy, whatever you want to call it. And I think hopefully the onus is really on us. We've got this 150 crore pool, and how we sensibly, if we're going to just do full page ads which look exactly the same for all 44 hours, we are wasting our money. I think we need to come up with a sensible solution such that we are able to meet this or answer this question as an industry. What does a mutual fund do for me in my life?
Just on that, two bases and spending, I mean, whether this is the message, do you see a centralized spending happening, or do you see, the 44 AMCs as per their, whatever is their two bases component spending? I mean,
I think it's still early days. As an industry, we're trying to figure out what is the best solution. But my rough and ready immediate question on this, answer to that would be that it's going to be a mix of both. I mean, so each one of us would certainly like to sort of create our own personality on some of this communication, but at the same time, I think it also makes sense for us to do some of the things at a centralized level as well.
Harshendu, anything you want to add?
No, so just on the question of growth, and I'm picking from every, we've talked about it in a lot of different areas. I especially like Virendra's suggestion that till you get the awareness, and that will take time, it may even take generations, what are the kind of things that can help you achieve growth in the interim? If we can get into the mandatory space, whether it be on the pension side or on the insurance side, and in most countries, that's the big pool that comes into mutual funds. So that is one way. The tax benefits, clearly, they hold a lot of attraction, and so that's a great incentive for somebody to kind of become a consumer for the industry. So if we can get some of these structural benefits, I think it would help our cause grow a lot more. The only other point I had to make was on the T15. What is it in for the T15 distributor beyond the commissions? I think one thing is very interesting about this set of changes. Is that it's going to force people who are already in the industries, the manufacturers and the distributors in the bigger cities, to take a call on their business model. And I don't think you can get away with a Me Too kind of business model. Till date, everybody has been following the same strategy. All fund houses are there in the same place, doing the same thing, coming out with similar products. Similarly, distributors have been running their businesses in one way. I think both manufacturers and distributors will be called upon to decide what their business strategy is going to be going forward. Should I be in the bigger cities only, or do I want to kind of penetrate every part of India? Do I focus on the direct model, or do I kind of depend on distribution, or do both? For the distributors, the call will be, do I function as a distributor, or do I function as an advisor, or can I build enough Chinese walls and do both the businesses? Because frankly, there are both kinds of consumers. And so I like this environment, which is allowing people to choose their business model and decide what they want to do, and is helping to kind of move in that direction. With the previous regime, I had a little bit of a problem because we were saying everybody has to follow one model and one type, and that one size fits all. And I think the previous speaker made an excellent point that should we treat whole of India as one? And I mean, the one size fits all model, I don't think it works for me. I mean, we are in a capital market economy, and everybody should decide their model. And so I think some of these things will also benefit everybody. To me, distributor regulations will benefit most the distribution community themselves, for example. So there is something in it for the T15 as well.
So maybe now we'll take some questions. We have some time, and please raise your hands. Mics, please, there, the left.
Hello.
Hi,
Okay,
I'm Nikhil Mehta.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions for the jury. Okay, firstly, we saw about growth for mutual funds beyond the top 15 cities, and on also how to reach out to the high net worth individuals. In this discussion, we also touched upon QFIs. So I wanted to know, is there anything for the distributors on how they can cater to QFIs? Because currently we have SEBI regulations, but there isn't anything for the distributors to cater to QFIs. Second question is, in these current regulations, SEBI has come up with a unique ID for even distributors who would be advising on the sale. So apart from the ARN, they have also suggested for a unique ID number to be captured along with each application. So is there any plan on how do we go about it? And thirdly, it's a small suggestion that SEBI, who has come up with this new uniform KYC regime, they have allowed all SEBI registered intermediaries to enable registrations with our KRAs, which are currently 4. Mutual fund distributors are currently only allowed to do IPV, but they are not allowed to do KYC processing. So why is this treatment to the distributors, and do we see any progress for that?
Who would like to take that? Harshindra? 3 questions.
Okay, so on the QFI, it's very simple. What is the idea behind the QFI? Basically, at a point, the government said the foreign institutional investors are kind of dominating the market, and I want retail foreign money to come inside the country. And that's the whole intention of the QFI regime. And so really, is it a distribution opportunity for distributors here in the country? It is if you have a presence outside the country. If you have a presence outside the country, and by the way, the NRIs could always come, and that's a lot of the distributors in India have focused on the NRI segment. If they have ability to get distribution money through foreign investors outside the country, especially non-institutional investors, the ones who don't have a capability of getting an FII license, yes, there is an opportunity. My sense is initially it will be, genuine institutionals or smaller institutions or, high net worth individuals outside who are interested in India, but don't want to apply for an FII license. They will come through maybe primarily foreign distributors, but if Indian distribution entities feel that they can go into that space, there may be an opportunity for them there. So that was the first question. Before I come on to the KYC question, sorry, if you just remind me on the second one. Yeah, so basically, I think it's to do with a lot of the client-friendly measures that they've come out. They want to track who is the individual who has actually sold the product at the time of the sale, and they want to identify that individual to do it. And so I think, frankly, it's basically looking at mis-selling and identifying who is the individual who has sold that particular product to that particular client. I mean, to my mind, and Bala and Rajiv can correct me if I'm wrong, that is the basic intention of that particular legislation. And so I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, if you've done nothing right and you've sold it the right way, it's not an issue. So that is the intention there. The third one on the KYC, I think we are going to see a lot more in the space. And I see the angst, and especially of the IFA community, when every time there's a regulatory change and the process changes, and it places a lot of burden on the financial advisor community. Actually here, what is SEBI trying to achieve? SEBI is saying that, there are different products that I regulate and everybody does a separate KYC. Can I come out with a common process for all the areas that I regulate, so that there's a common KYC? So the idea was to reduce administrative burden. But you know, being in the industry and we've gone through the map-ins and the several avatars of KYC, it seems like another set of changes and no new paperwork. I think, frankly, the solution to all of this ultimately, and I hope the day it happens, because I know there is talk about it, is when the bank KYC actually gets accepted as the only KYC to invest in mutual funds or insurance or any such products. Because that will simplify it, and then the duplication will go away. And I think, frankly, we will head to that sooner than people think, but we will eventually get to that stage. And so the duplication will be eliminated, and then we will be living away from that. But I must, and so, sorry, you had a sub-question as to why mutual fund distributors are not allowed to do that IVP. I think it is to do with the fact that they are not regulated. The other people in the chain are registered or regulated. And so I think once they get regulated and they become regulated entities, I think the regulators will be a lot more willing to place responsibilities on mutual fund distributors. And that's why it's important for distributors to get regulated. I must add one question, point though, and we've talked about regulatory changes. The one industry initiative that will help overcome a lot of these issues is the utility. And Rajiv, Bala, all of us are on the board of AMFI, and I know we've made very good progress with that. It's going to see the light of day very soon. The work is going to start and it's going to come. And to me, that is one initiative, because I don't see other industries do that. I don't see all the insurance players get together and say, we'll do one platform, one application, one process, one check. Similarly, I don't see banks get together and do that, but the mutual fund industry is getting together and doing that, and I think it will help in two ways. I think it will make the industry more accessible, especially for the independent advisors. It will cut out a lot of the operational burden, the KYC kind of burden that you've talked about, which I think they spend a lot of time doing operations in addition to sales, and I think hopefully we will move to a purely sales kind of environment when that utility becomes a reality. So I think that is a very powerful initiative by the industry, and hopefully we'll see the light of day sooner than later.
Thanks. Harshendu. There was a gentleman here who, yeah, please.
Presently, IFA community, since last 5 years, we have been seeing that there have been continuous changes. Now how do you expect an IFA to become positive? We have seen that I have traveled extensively all over India. We launched our online platform few years back, and we see that there is no way an IFA is willing to put money in his own business because he doesn't know what is a map road going ahead. So what I would want, Dhirendra Kumar representing the media side, can we have something positive about mutual funds as an industry, Because we have continuously seen that there have only been negative news about the mutual fund, the way we do business. I don't think there is any other business which is so regulated as this particular industry, I met a gentleman from Vanguard a few months back, and one of us asked him, what is the reason why people in US invest about 40% of the savings through mutual funds? And he said one differentiator is media. Media actually educates the investors, the clients. Why can't we do that? Because we see the complete opposite what's happening here, in this country. So how do we tackle this,
Any one of us, son who's studying in 7th, 8th standard, normally in India it started from June and it finished in March. Suppose the principal said that your syllabus will change 7, 8 times. How your son will react to you and how you will react to principal. So this is what normally happening in the industry. This is what my...
Yeah, okay. No, I think it's a supplementary question to that, saying that, these kind of constant changes, does impact, and I mean, he was referring to a school curriculum, and if it changes that often, how would it impact? So, Dhirendra? Dhirendra, you want to?
No, I completely agree with you that, frequent changes. I really don't worry about frequent improvements of processes and other things, but any change which impacts the business model, because business models take longer time to evolve. You choose a career based on some premise to plan. We choose to, at some point I made a choice that whether I want to run value research or whether I go and try and give a shot at becoming an officer in a bank or, and I will be looking at my aspirations, my revenue stream, and my own, aspiration in terms of other dimensions of lifestyle. In this case, I completely agree that this is alarming. The rate, the pace at which business model impacting changes are being made. Hopefully it's done, and you can't question me on that. I would like to, answer your question. I would like to really take on the question on the way media, mutual fund industry is very lucky to get this kind of disproportionate media attention, completely in disproportion to its scale. But they are to be blamed for, absolutely nonsensical attention. If I can list you, many of those stories we don't even look at value research. For example, on 2nd or 3rd of every month, there will be a news item that mutual funds down by 40,000 crore. It's an absolutely different kind of mutual fund industry. It has nothing to do with the kind of investors most of you will be dealing with. And 40,000 crore, this particular news item, some big large number, which normally makes a very nice headline, is 30,000, 40,000, 70,000 crore goes out of mutual fund industry every 3 months. And it works with very clockwork precision. It's pretty routine. 30, 40,000 crore rupee moving out of liquid funds is very different from 500 crore getting into an equity fund. I think mutual fund industry has done very little in simplifying product. Now they have been forced to, and now they are beginning to, and and I think they are moving in that direction. To a great extent, they have been forced to. They have completely failed in communicating in the long-term wealth-building characters and ability and demonstrated ability of their own products. I find very little literature from themselves in their own for their own product, where what would have been if some sane investor was behaving in a pretty unemotional manner, and what the result would have been. I think the great deal of focus on short-term performance, something which is quite misleading but makes a nice headline. Some of these reportage need to be anchored, handheld. Maybe to some extent we need to really hold information as well, because if you give wrong tools in the hand of monkeys, it will be abused. And that is what is happening with a lot of data getting generated on mutual funds, from mutual funds
this lady
in an
here?
aggregated way.
Hello.
Mike.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
One sec. There's this lady there. Then we'll come to you.
This is not actually a question. It's just understanding that I want to do since from morning that I'm sitting over here. There are 3 things that I want to understand. All along we had been speaking penetration. What level of penetration are you talking about? 1. 2, education. IFAs has to be educated. IFAs are not educated. They need to attend training. That is one set of school. The other set of school which SEBI has brought about is retired teachers, retired post-government officials, all those people coming into this who are going to educate them. You have already one set of IFAs who are not educated, who doesn't know how the market behaves. You are getting in one set of educators who doesn't even know what a mutual fund is. How are you going to do that? And third is, all along you have been talking about that you are manufacturers. Now, from what I have understood of the whole industry in my entire career is, mutual fund AMCs are the one who is asking people to come and invest. Investors are not interested in coming into mutual fund because they don't understand mutual fund. Nobody is there to explain to them. Tell me which industry, which manufacturer is asking the customer, you pay for the services, I will give you the product. Name one industry, one manufacturer. From morning I'm listening, we are the manufacturers, we are the manufacturers. Is there any manufacturer in this country or in this world which is saying, you don't know about your services, you don't know about what I'm going to tell you, but you pay for the services, I will give you the product, but I don't know the outcome.
Excuse me, I think that last question is not, this thing about manufacturer, and I mean, can you just give it in a...
Okay.
What is that fees that you're talking about? That
I'm not talking about the fees. Today, distributors, when they are being remunerated, the question comes in, nowhere SEBI says anything about the remuneration. It's always you penetrate to tier 3 cities. Tier 1 city in Bombay itself, we have a lot of people who are not a mutual fund investors. You are asking IFAs, educate yourself, train yourself, have an office, go and educate them, go and create awareness. Who is going to remunerate them? AMCs are very silent about the whole thing. What they say? Go and... Pardon? AMC wants us. They want us now to get the business. But you get it at your cost. What SEBI did was right. They abolished entry load fine. But SEBI could have also have done one thing. They could have said, okay, AMC is paying for their fund managers, AMP is paying for the hoardings, AMP is paying for the advertisement fees. They can't pay 2%. Is that too much of their funds to pay? Put a cap. Don't give their Malaysia trip, don't give their Singapore trip. But you can give a cap. You can remunerate them. The penetration can happen. Did any of the AMCs come forward and tell SEBI took the responsibilities? Okay, we will pay it. Don't break the industry set. What they said? Go and collect it from the investors. Let the investors decide how much they want to pay. Do you think any investors is going to pay? I charge fees. I'm not saying they don't pay me. But how many IFAs over here have the ability to go and charge? Churning happened. Who encouraged that churning? Who brought so many NFOs? Who wanted to create funds? Was it the investors? What is the IFAs? Why were people silent about this? Why was the media silent about this? Now a big hue and cry about many things have been happened. But who is the primary person who brings about the money? Nothing has been spoken about it. You don't want to talk about remuneration. You don't want to talk about compensation. But yes, you want educations to happen. You want awareness to happen. But at what cost? NPS is a big example for that. The sales people of AMC has to be educated. They come, they talk about, ये NFO है madam, ये FMP आया है, ये return है, ये बेचो. इतना आपको commission मिलेगा, इतना आपको brokerage मिलेगा. Any?
Ma'am, let's try and address.
See, all we do is paperwork. Day in and day out, only paperwork.
May I just request to stop this here and try and address as much of it as we can possibly do. Bala, you want to take a shot? Rajiv?
Keep debating about why and why some of things are happening. I think one has to accept the fact that why all these things have come, on what is the background. So this industry is about, say, 18 years old industry. If I add a UTI, is about 3 decades old industry. It's a very shame on our part as an industry to claim that I'm managing only 2 lakh crore in equity assets. It's actually nothing we have done from the point of view of from business actually. The very fact that the equity market from 2007, all these things we need to also look at it, what is the background on which it has come. From 2007 to 2012, except the market actions, the net sales that is reported by the mutual industries is a peanut, is nothing significant. Yes, there is a fact that there is a set of community who has worked very well for the industry to grow and build a size. There is a set of industry players who also, of course, focused on 1 year, 2 year kind of investments. As a result, the returns have happened. The fact of the matter is, from the capital market point of view, the assets are not grown at all. That is one. Second is, we need to also look at it from the background on which why all these regulations came. So this is one aspect. And then second is worldwide. Worldwide is not just one in India. Worldwide, post-2008 crisis, things have undergone a major change. So there is a clear signal which is coming from the whole aspects is a change in the regulation is going to be constant. So we cannot escape from that. So we may argue, we may actually dispute, at the end of the day is not going to take us anywhere. It's for us as an AMCs, for you as an IFAs, you as a business building. At the end of the day, you need to look at it only from the point of view of how do I actually want to build a business long term. We can debate, we can of course dispute, we can of course increase our blood pressure in terms of how it can be done. At the end of the day, I need to accept the fact that the change in the regulation is not just restricted only in our industry, it is happening everywhere. The kind of regulatory change that is coming in the Reserve Bank of India, especially from the banking industry's point of view, is unimaginable. The last 3 years, the kind of regulation that has come is unimaginable. Also needs to accept the fact that all this regulation is also coming because of our own pop, which I call it as our own pop, which I will call it our own sin. In the sense that the industries, also when you go through actually various stages, you do actually explore, like NFO you mentioned about NFOs. Series of NFOs, it got collapsed. Series of various plans, now with the new regulations, got collapsed. So all these things are coming on the base of what you have experienced, what we have found, the reason actually for the industry not to grow. So that's why I think one has to accept the fact that the change is going to be constant. The question is how to actually build the business. Somebody is of course serious enough as a business, there is going to be a struggle. I'm not saying there is not going to be a struggle. And then if I'm serious about, that's why I mentioned about optimism. If I'm not serious about building this business, then they'll always have some kind of roadblock in way I think I'm building the business. And everyone who is in the business do not have much choice but to make an investment. So that's the way it's changing. We'll have to live with that. That's why I would look at it.
One question over here. You're saying we all have to work together. You expect us to work for free?
Let me affirm the fact nobody works in the country for free.
But that
Nobody
is
works in the country for free.
I think everybody would agree.
Absolutely no. Nobody works in the country for anybody for no. There is no free lunch that exists anywhere in the industry.
As far as mutual fund industry is concerned, sir, because what is being remunerated and the type of regulations, the type of paperwork that we do is not adequate.
Let me intervene here. Is the remuneration is the part and parcel of how we actually pay. The industry has been, of course, remunerating in bits and pieces, whichever way it is being done. So at the end of the day, is not the question of the not getting remuneration. It's the question of what is the level of remuneration which used to exist 2 years back, and then how actually the remuneration is changing. One has to accept the fact that remuneration is also coming down. So in any industries, if you take, of course, you don't compare the manufacturing industry, the financial industries, if you take, we have seen, of course, stockbrokers, right? In the way I think the things have changed. So that's, I think, see, if we keep on, see, this is a fact which I also need to mention, that we can keep disputing and discussing only about these things, then how to actually grow my business. That's why I think we'll have to look at it.
I agree with it. You need to have a quality IFAs, you need to have proper education, you need to create proper awareness. Everything has to go hand in hand. But if adequate compensation is not being done, end of the day, the products that will be going to the investors is the one which has the maximum compensation among that product set. There you will have to
just intercede on behalf of the panel. I think there are certain issues that you've raised which are valid from your point of view. I think the question of is the remuneration adequate or not, I don't think can be
that is not
can be decided here.
Today, the way things are going, the adequacy is coming back to zero. And the level of regulations, the paperwork is going up.
No, so I'm saying that point that you've raised, and I think it's for them to sort of deliberate upon it in their own offices, maybe under AMFI, whether this adequate, not adequate in the context of that. So it's not, nobody is working for free, I'm sure. I mean, as much as it sounds interesting.
Sir, one simple question to all, I'm here.
Yeah. Sorry, Bala.
A simple question to all the AMCs. Do they agree with the SEBI's regulation on the direct plan and the, the remuneration part of it? If they do, why? If they do not, why don't they go back to SEBI and say that we are not accepting this, this is not the viable proposition or a regulation? Simple. So can I have answer from Franklin Templeton and Birla Sun Life that do they agree with the regulation of direct plan and SEBI's all steps taken by SEBI? And can't we have as a India, democratic country, can't we go back to regulator say, hey, look, you are not doing right for the industry and this industry will not survive or grow. We are taught in the entire world that a weaker child needs more attention. And mutual fund is the weaker child among FDs, post office, insurance and whatever. Why are you penalizing a weaker child? It will die.
Sorry, Rajan, with your permission, can I butt in?
Yes, Amit.
Before Arshindu answers, I have a small request to make to everybody. I think, and a lot of friends in the audience, a lot of people know, and I'm neither working for a mutual fund company nor working as a distributor. I'm actually between the two. So that's why I thought I'll butt in. But, what I'm sensing is there's a little bit of, or rather there's a very higher level of negativity which is cropping up and which is undesired. Across the country, when I move and meet a lot of people, today also, if you just look at the pattern, when somebody bashed SEBI, there were claps in the audience. When somebody bashed AMCs, there were claps in the audience. When somebody bashed media, there were claps in the audience. I think that this negativity is not required. Look at the positives and negatives. Each industry goes through ups and downs. There are going to be challenges. There is a growth at the end of some time period. So don't worry much about it. I mean, let's not, all of us are working together. I think...
So let's have an answer for the panel, please. Amit bhai, let the panel answer this question. Because I mentioned to you that a weaker child will die actually. So growth, I mean, only if you're living you will survive. Then only you will be able to reap the benefits.
Can I just give me just one moment.
He should not interfere. Why should he?
Fair.
So I'm actually quite happy to answer this question. Two things. One, and Dhirendra mentioned early how it came about, and there are members who are in the Mutual Fund Advisory Committee of SEBI, which is where regulations are debated and then they come on. Sometimes they come through other means. I don't think this was a recommendation from the industry for sure, that's saying that, oh, let's get a direct share class, right? So this has come, the regulator in his wisdom has bought this regulation. Now, what is the intent? They are saying basically their intent is that if a client comes in directly and he doesn't use a distributor, in this new world of fungibility, I don't want you to keep that money. I want you to find out a way of paying him back. And so they came up with this direct solution. Now, Dhirendra has elaborated through his talk that he is concerned about direct and that it has unintended consequences. So that is the issue. So I think this whole debate, which is manufacturer versus distributor, I don't think it should be that debate. We are subject both to the same regulator. The regulator in his wisdom has come out with something. And so we've debated that. All of us on the AMFI board, we've debated lots of times on what to do. I don't think it's not that the representation has not been made to SEBI. SEBI stands basically on this topic currently, from what I understand, has been, look, I've got this in. I want to do a certain thing, which is, I want a genuinely direct consumer to get that benefit of pricing. Why don't you just implement the rule? I've just introduced it. Give it some time. Now, we all know in the industry who are practitioners in the industry that, and as Dhirendra has pointed out, will cause several issues. So now the question is, what do we do to make sure that SEBI gets his intent of favoring the consumer, but not at the cost of the intermediary? I am very worried about this. I'll tell you why. And I've said this also in today's panel discussion. I think there is a huge lack of distribution in the country, and I clearly want to see it grow. And if everybody in the room who are mutual fund distributors start thinking of this industry as not being a viable industry or an industry without a future, we can't grow for sure. So does it concern me? It absolutely concerns me. I don't think we needed this. And especially we didn't need it because, as I said in my opening comments, there are 20 good things that are coming. And whole of the conversation has gone from that to this one point, which is an unintended consequence. Now we have to work jointly to kind of do it, and I've worked, and a lot of the people in this room have met me. We've discussed solutions. I'm sure Bala, Rajiv, I think frankly from the time the regulations come, there's only been one discussion in the industry. Nobody's talking about markets, nobody's talking about funds, nobody's talking about what they want to sell. The whole discussion is this. So business effectively has come to a standstill. Now, is that good for anybody? I don't think it's good for anybody. So why is this a question of manufacturer versus distributor? We have to work together and figure out a way around it. And so the regulator will listen to you in some cases, and some cases they won't listen to you. I mean, that's the environment in India. And by the way, the environment is not only for the mutual fund industry. You know, the lady also made a point. Every single industry is going through regulatory flux right now. You talk to anybody in any industry in India, because India is a developing economy, that, a lot of the industries are relatively new. Bala pointed out that mutual funds and wealth management is a relatively new industry. Regulations are changing constantly. And by the way, it's happening in mutual funds, it's happening in insurance, banks, forget financial services. It's happening in every single industry. Ask somebody in telecom, and I just know somebody who's a close friend who's lost a job because the telecom companies are shutting down because of the changes. So I think this is an environment we have to live in. There's no escape from it. Hopefully, as we develop, the environment settles down and we don't see these kind of changes. I'm sure, and I speak for everybody on the panel, nobody wants to see so many changes and the uncertainty, and I hope some of these things fix. One of the things I heard Mr. Sinha very closely in his press conference post the changes he announced, and one of the things he talked about, he said, I'm actually going to get, and they started working on it, on a policy framework for mutual funds that will kind of lay out a roadmap for what the government wants to do with mutual funds. I hope that will bring a lot of clarity to this discussion, and we go away from the uncertainty, because uncertainty is not good for business. So that's my reaction to the direct share class. I don't know if...
We have time for one last question, which is not related to direct.
Hi, this is Devin. See, IRCTC changed, the way people book tickets, and even my security guard, books it through that. T15 beyond, people are booking, through IRCTC. So has the MF industry, not tapped the internet as a medium, effectively? And how will things change post-utility platform? Like, will investors be able to buy directly from the AMFI utility platform?
On the MF utility? MF utility. Yeah, I think the way it's conceived is this will be the phase actually for the distributors to transact in mutual fund schemes. At this point of time, there are about 7 mutual funds in which you make an investments and make an allocations. You are run to about 7 different fund houses and making 7 different application forms and give 7 different checks. I mean, today the way the MF utility is being conceived is you just choose, you put of course what is the amount you want to put, and then actually where all you want to allocate, and the rest of the details of course there in the MF utility platform itself. So it's actually in some sense acts as a back office for the distributors, and also is an online connection of the online transfer of data to the CAMS and Carvi for the further processing. The same way for the redemption switches is much more easy actually the way I think it can happen in a seamless manner. The last of course will also be part of the MF utility is moving from one fund to the other fund. Today is one fund, one scheme to other schemes, you can do it as a form of switch in, switch outs. The same way there is a need actually for people to move from one fund to the other fund in case there is a need. So all such kind of facilities will also come as part of this. The last of course from the distribution point of view, there is a one-stop report card of all your customers, whether with respect to the investments, where the pool of assets what you manage as distributors, you get the complete statistics. On those pool of assets, what the kind of brokerage or commissions you get from the mutual fund houses, all you get in a consolidated statement, so that you are able to actually do the tally of the whole things much more in a seamless manner. So that's the way it's designed. I'm sure once it takes, I think we already engaged with the AMFI board, discussed some time back, and engaged with one of the service provider who has built some of the national platform, not just only in India, even in globally, they have been working with some of the banks, and we already have appointed the vendor, and hopefully I think it should be up and running soon actually.
Thank you, Bala. And thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Harshendu. Thank you, Dhirendra. And thank you, gentlemen and ladies here, for spending a lot of time actually on this discussion. Thank you all for sparing that kind of time to this thing. A little token of appreciation from Cafemutual. Bala.
Thank you.
This is Harshendu, Rajiv.
Thank you.
Dhirendra sir.
Overall, we're all convinced that in this industry we all have to work together. That has been the leitmotif of all the interventions by Cafemutual. I'm convinced that the future of this business remains bright. There are certain things on which we all have to work together, and I think a lot of things have moved in a very, very positive direction. So let's end this evening with a note of positivity, and let's say 3 cheers for this industry.
On behalf of all the distributor fraternity, I thank you. On behalf of distributor fraternity, I thank Prem and his entire Cafe Mutual team for organizing such a great event. Thank you.
Excuse me, before you all leave, I'd just like you to wait. There are some thank yous to be done, and you know, this has really been a fabulous day. And I can safely ask you all to please block October 12, 2013, so that we all assemble once again to discuss the most pertinent issues. But we are grateful to the entire DSP team. Nagnath, Aditi, Sudeep have been extremely supportive, but I'd like to mention Ajit. Ajit, you've been extra special. We really appreciate your ideas and encouragement. That's really special. Sunil Subramanyam of Sundaram, the entire Franklin Templeton team, Harshendu, Juza, the Birla team, Bala, Naveen, Sridhar of Axis, also our supporting sponsors, UTI, NJ, IIFL, Tata Mutual Fund, and LIC Nomura. Our distinguished panelists and speakers, without which our entire session wouldn't have been as inspiring and as wonderful. And the delegates. It's really because of you that today we can call this entire event a big success. So thank you so much. Thank you, Shailesh and the team for taking this off as such a flawless event. Thank you so much. Good evening and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Well done.